It was a cold and rainy night in Montana. The kind of night where the wind feels like it's pushing all the pain back into your chest. Jack Walker walked into a quiet, dimly lit bar off the highway. Mud clung to his boots, and his worn army jacket told a story even if he didn't. He moved like a man who had seen too much and wanted to remember even less. The bar was mostly empty, just a few locals playing cards and a tired bartender wiping glasses. Jack wasn't looking for anything. He just wanted to sit in silence, drink something strong, and try not to remember names and faces that haunted his sleep. But fate doesn't ask what you're looking for. It just hands you what you need, whether you're ready or not. That's when he saw her. She was sitting alone in the corner booth, wrapped in a black coat, a red scarf around her neck, and something in her eyes that said she didn't belong here either. She looked out the window like she was waiting for someone or running from something. Or maybe both. When their eyes met, she didn't look away. She raised her glass slightly and said, "You look like you've buried a few ghosts." Her voice was calm but sad, the kind of voice that came from someone who'd been through a storm and never dried off. Jack walked over, slow but steady. He didn't smile. "Lady," he said quietly, "I've buried more than that." She didn't flinch. She didn't joke. She just made space for him to sit. So he did. No names, no stories, just two people who knew what pain felt like, sitting together like the world finally made a little sense. Her name came later, Claire. But right then, she was just someone who saw through him without needing to ask questions. They started talking. Not about anything deep at first. Just small things. How he liked his coffee, the song playing on the jukebox, the way the rain sounded against the window. But even in those little things, Jack could feel something real, something honest. He hadn't felt that in years. Still, there was something off about her, something she wasn't saying. Every time he asked where she was from, she'd dodge. The question said things like, everywhere and nowhere, or just passing through. And sometimes, when she thought no one was watching, Jack caught her wiping away tears quickly, like she didn't want anyone to see her break. One night, after a few drinks and a lot of silence, Claire finally said, "I ran." Her voice cracked when she said it. "That's all you need to know." Jack looked her in the eyes and replied, "I used to run too. Until I figured out the war doesn't end just because you leave the battlefield. Sometimes it follows you home." She didn't say anything at first. Just looked at him like she was finally starting to trust someone again. She whispered, "My ex-husband. He was powerful. Dangerous. I left in the middle of the night. Didn't tell anyone. Just vanished." She paused, took a shaky breath. "He doesn't like losing, especially not to a woman who knows his secrets." Jack clenched his jaw. He had seen men like that before, men who wore power like a weapon and treated love like a leash. "If he comes looking," Jack said, steady and calm, "he won't like what he finds." Claire looked at him for a long time. She didn't say thank you. She didn't have to. The way her eyes softened told him she hadn't heard words like that in a long time. That night, something changed. They weren't just two strangers with broken pasts anymore. They were something more. Something that felt like hope. Maybe even love. But Jack didn't know yet that the storm wasn't over. It was just circling, and when it hit, it would test everything. His strength, her trust, and the bond they were just starting to build. The night air was thick and heavy when trouble came knocking. Jack and Claire were starting to feel a small peace, but that peace didn't last long. The bar, which had felt like a safe place just days before, suddenly became a battlefield. A man walked in, his presence loud and cold, like a storm rolling in fast. He was sharp in a dark coat, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. The moment he saw Claire, he called her name out loud enough for everyone to hear. The words hit, the room like a gunshot. "Claire, you left your ring, and our arrangement." The room went quiet, all eyes turning to them. Jack stood up, his body blocking Claire like a shield. "She's not interested," Jack said firmly. The man looked at Jack like he was a joke. "Who are you?" "Her bodyguard," he sneered. Jack didn't back down. "No, I'm the man who won't let her bleed again." Suddenly, the tension exploded. Chairs scraped, voices rose, and fists flew. Jack hit first, hard and fast. The man wasn't alone. Two others joined him, and the bar turned into chaos. Bottles shattered, the air filled with screams, and Jack fought like a man with nothing to lose. Every punch he threw was filled with the weight of his past and the promise he'd made to protect Claire. Claire screamed, scared but watching as Jack took on 3 men at once. When the fight ended, the floor was stained with blood, and Claire trembled in Jack's arms. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice gentle beneath the roughness. "No," she whispered, "because now he knows where I am." Fear settled over them like a dark cloud. They both understood that running wasn't an option anymore. This fight had just begun. Jack didn't waste time. He took Claire far away from the bar, away from prying eyes and danger. His old cabin in the woods was quiet, hidden, a place where time seemed to slow down. By the firelight, Claire finally opened up. The story she had kept locked inside spilled out like a river breaking through a dam. Her ex-husband, Vincent Calhoun, wasn't just a cruel man. He was powerful, running illegal weapons through private security deals. Claire had discovered this dark secret by accident, and when she threatened to expose him, he made sure no one would believe her. She had to fake her own death and disappear to stay alive. Her voice shook as she told Jack all this. "I should have told you sooner," she said. "I was scared of what might happen if I did." Jack listened quietly, understanding more than she knew. He had his own ghosts, but hers were new, more dangerous. He reached out, taking her hand in his. "You're not alone anymore," he said softly. "I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." Claire looked at him, a mixture of relief and doubt in her eyes. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. Jack didn't hesitate. "Because you're worth it," he said simply. "And because sometimes fighting isn't just about battles, it's about protecting the people who need you." That night, with the fire crackling and the world outside dark and cold, something shifted between them. Claire felt the weight of her past still heavy on her shoulders, but for the first time, she allowed herself to hope. Jack wasn't just a soldier who fought enemies on battlefields. He was a man who fought for her, and that made all the difference. They weren't perfect, and the danger was still real. But together, they found a kind of strength neither had known they needed. The night was cold and dark, but Jack and Claire had no choice but to face what was coming. Vincent Calhoun was relentless. He had tracked Claire down, sending threats and shadowy figures to remind them both that running was over. Jack knew that the only way to protect Claire was to confront Vincent, not hide from him. The moment of truth came one evening when a car pulled up near Jack's cabin, headlights cutting through the trees like knives. Vincent stepped out, his face cold and cruel. "You think you can hide her from me?" he said with a sneer. Jack stood firm, his voice steady but filled with warning. "This ends now, Vincent. Leave Claire alone." Vincent laughed, a sound that echoed like danger. "You're just one man. What can you do?" Jack didn't answer with words. Instead, he moved fast, taking Vincent by surprise. The fight was brutal but quick. Two men who had faced battles, one in war, one in darkness. When it was over, Vincent lay defeated, and Jack knew the nightmare was finally ending. Claire watched quietly, tears in her eyes, feeling a mix of fear and relief. Jack turned to her and said, "You don't have to run anymore." She smiled, through her tears, the first real smile she'd shown in a long time. "I believe that now," she said. But the real victory was more than just beating Vincent. It was about breaking the chains of the past that held them both prisoner. Jack and Claire knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy. But they had found something stronger than fear, trust, and love. Days passed, and the small cabin in the woods became a place of healing. Claire and Jack talked about everything: hopes, fears, and dreams that had been buried under years of pain. They shared stories not just of loss, but of moments that made life worth living. Claire said, "I thought I had to be alone to survive. But with you, I'm learning something new." Jack nodded. "Sometimes the strongest soldiers are the ones brave enough to let someone in." The bond they formed wasn't just about survival. It was about hope. Hope that no matter how dark life got, there was always a chance for a new beginning. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky with soft colors, Claire and Jack sat on the porch, hands intertwined. Claire looked at Jack and said quietly, "You saved me, but you also gave me back myself." Jack smiled, his eyes reflecting the light of the fading day. "We saved each other," he said. They both understood that their journey wasn't just about escaping the past, but about building a future together, one filled with love, courage, and honesty. The lesson they learned was simple, but powerful. No matter how hard life's battles are, facing them with someone who truly cares changes everything. Trust can heal wounds that time alone never will. And love, real love, means standing beside each other, not just when things are easy, but especially when the storm hits. Jack and Claire's story wasn't perfect. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was real, filled with pain, struggle, and hope. And that's what made it unforgettable. Together, they found peace not in running, but in standing strong, side by side, ready for whatever came next.